professional. Information inside and out as it relates to finance and economics. He's a coach. He is a father. He is a basketball coach. He's committed to winning and helping us go all the way to the top. And so would you please help me welcome to the line our friend, our success coach, our finance doctor with our prescription RX for Forex, none other than Dr. Craig Bythewood. Dr. Bythewood, are you out there?
Yes, ma'am. I am here, Miss Tanya Hill Anderson. Thank you so much for your introduction, and thank you so much for your consistent energy. I know for a fact that individuals feed off of the energy that you bring to our movement. So thank you for being who you are. So shout out to everyone in the Be Your Own Bank movement, continued health and wellness for our trade whisperer. And I bring you greetings on a talk with the finance doctor, your RX for Forex. In case we have anybody who is new, this is a call that is designed to be a conversation between the Be Your Own Bank movementeers and myself. And the reason why this is a conversation that can be of value is simply because we recognize this fact that I say every single call. The world of personal finance is literally the only world where the only people who provide you information about the products happen to be the same individuals who are selling you the product. So what that does is it creates an incentive for individuals to share with you products and personal finance from the perspective that will benefit the organization and not the individual person. So I'll give you a quick example snatched from the headlines of my life. So I needed to get some motor oil. And so as a result of that, I went into AutoZone. And when you walk into AutoZone, they make it easy for you because there are all types of oil options right there in the front. So I was about to get a particular oil item that was large sign, special, all that kind of stuff. And I decided just to go ahead and go back in the back where the oil aisle is. And when I got to the oil aisle, I saw they had the same exact brand, just with a different color bottle, and it was $10 less. Now, this is not about trying to be frugal. That's not what we are. We're wealth and abundance. This is about understanding that if I have the same product for $10 less, it makes sense for me to put that in the back. And then if I have it in the front, that means that sign benefits the organization and not you. So the sign says special, get this oil, low price, but that benefits the organization, not the person. So I'm only using that as an analogy to say that's what Be Your Own Bank is about. It's about understanding that organizations are going to present things to you in a way which benefits them, and that's okay. Have you ever gone to an interview and said, well, I really suck, I'm late a lot, and I'm probably going to get an attitude on certain days. And if I have a fight with my spouse, boyfriend, or girlfriend, I'm probably going to be a bad employee. And on Fridays, I stop working at 12 noon. So of course not, because it doesn't benefit you. So this is not, sometimes when I say things like this, people get upset with the organization. Oh, that's bad. They're trying to trick us. No, they're just doing what's best for them. And so we all do that. But what we're doing is we're taking control of our economic infrastructure by understanding that and doing what's best for us. So that's what Be Your Own Bank is all about. That's what this call is all about. So let me pause for a second and ask if anyone has any questions, comments, or testimonies. So I had a very interesting conversation this morning with a gentleman that about 20 years older than me, and he and I are working on a consulting project together. So he made this comment. I really want you all to dial in to this point, especially since we happen to have more females represented on most of these calls than we do males. And I've been very vocal about that. I talked about that a couple of months ago on what the reason is and all of that. You can find that in the archives. But for now, I just want to make this point. So we were talking about wealth and abundance. We were talking about what it takes to put yourself in a position of strength. We're talking about the term rich and what that means in different cultures. And he made this comment. This particular person that we've been talking about, this is him talking. This particular person that we've been talking about, I don't believe he's really rich. And the reason why I don't believe he's really rich is because his wife still works. She's an engineer. Now, I understand where he was coming from because in his mind, he feels as though if I'm making enough money, then I could put my wife in a position where she doesn't have to work. And that's fine. That's fine for him to want to do that. It's fine for her to want to do that. What I explained to him is this. I said, I've had many interactions with women, and that didn't sound right, did it? I've had many conversations with women from a life coaching or a colleague or a business perspective in the Be Your Own Bank movement who say this, that oftentimes when they are defining themselves, when they are looking at their worth, that they look at their worth as defined by their husband or defined by their kids. Every single area of their life is about what the husband wants or needs, or what the children needs or wants, and they oftentimes lose themselves. So as a result of that, colleague that I'm talking to, some of the women who may have husbands that are wealthy feel as though they want to work because of it's their purpose. It's because it's something that's of value. And he came back to me and he said, well, why would anybody want to do that? Why would you want to put yourself in a position where you have to answer to someone, where there are only a certain number of days when you can have a vacation, where if you decide you want to do something on a given day, you're not able to do it? And I said, and I wasn't on camera, I had my flyer. So I said, can you again look at that flyer that is my Zoom picture? And he said, you mean the one that says Be Your Own Bank Movement? I said, exactly. I said, every time we have a meeting and you see that flyer, that means that I agree with you. I agree that we shouldn't subject ourselves to a situation where we have to be subjected to someone else's agenda. That's not what this is about. This is about you not judging someone because they want to fulfill their purpose, because they want to do what makes them feel good, because they want to wake up every day and operate in their desires. So you don't know what that woman wants, or whether her engineering career is worthwhile, or whether she's doing things to help people, et cetera, et cetera. So I said all that to say this. His speech in trying to convince me, we went 6 or 7 rounds, was so aggressive about why it's probably the last thing we want to do, to be in a position where someone else dictates your time, where someone else decides what you have to do and when you have to do it, and whether you can take a vacation, or whether or not you can, how long you can be on maternity leave. How long do you need to be able to take care of your baby that you brought into this world? So I said all that to say this. It was a nice reminder to me about this movement, because the argument that he was making about why the wife shouldn't work isn't necessarily, he didn't understand the part about a woman being empowered, and we do. We just heard from a phenomenal woman. We have a phenomenal woman that runs our profit calls. So we have, Wealthy Women Wednesday. We have our calls on Friday. So we understand what it's like for women leadership. And for those of you that may not know, raised by a single mother, raising 3 girls, teenage girls as a single dad. So I get it. I get what female leadership is about. I'm around female leadership my whole life. In fact, when I had a dog in my last residence, it was a female. So I get it. But I just felt like it was a reminder. It was a reminder of what we're doing. We're giving you the opportunity to have freedom. We're giving you the opportunity to put yourself in a position of being your own bank. So there are really 2 things that I've said in the last 11 minutes. One was that infrastructure is set up where individual institutions do things that benefit them and not necessarily us. And second, that the Be Your Own Bank movement is set up for us to have freedom. So those 2 concepts together has led me to want to share with you just a little bit about the way banks operate. Not so that we can look at banks and say, ooh, bad bank, But instead, we can look at ourselves and say, hey, good strategy, good infrastructure, good philosophy, good movement. So I want to start by defining to you what a bank is. What is a bank? Just adjacent to this camera view that you have is a door. And that door leads into my garage. And inside of my garage, I have a whole long, large bookcase full of books. And they're in cubby holes like this because I section off all the books based on the particular theme, nerd. And one of the cubby holes has textbooks in it. And I have enough textbooks after having my PhD in finance and economics for 30 years, 27 years. I have a lot of cubby holes with different sets of textbooks. Well, there's one cubby hole that's filled with bank management textbooks. Now, if I go out to one of those books right now and I open up the book and I look and see the definition of a bank, this is what it would say. It would say a bank is an organization that takes deposits and then uses those deposits to make loans. They pay a very small rate. It does not say small. It says they pay a rate on the deposits, and then they charge a rate on the loan, and they make money off the difference. That is called the bank profit model. Let me set that up for you again. The definition of a bank in each one of those textbooks in that cubbyhole in my garage would say, a bank is an organization that takes deposits and pays an interest rate on those deposits and then makes loans and charges an interest rate. I hope I said that correctly. Let me do it again just in case. They take deposits and they pay an interest rate on the deposits. Then they make loans and they charge an interest rate on the loans. And that difference between the rate that's being paid on the deposits and the rate that's being charged on the loans, that is called the bank profit model. The bank profit model. Now, watch this. Watch the way in which I have watched over the last 3 decades, and I'm going to go ahead and say 4 decades, because as a PhD student studying banks, I went about 10 years back in terms of historical significance. So the last 40 years, let me explain to you what I've witnessed about banks. I remember being in graduate school and I had a credit union account from the university. So they came around to all of the students, and I want you to put this in perspective. This is the late 80s. The late 80s. I just look like this. I'm pretty old. So it's the late 80s. And they came around and they passed out these documents. And these documents were called direct deposit. And it was a new situation that they were using that allowed you to be able to take the money and have it electronically taken out. Now I know y'all are laughing because most of you have never seen a world where that didn't exist, but this was something new. So what they did was they gave us these documents, and the document said, fill it out, put your bank account number, and then we're going to directly electronic deposit. We're going to electronically deposit your money, your checks, into this account. So I decided, as a young man who was studying banks and who majored in finance at Howard University, having been exposed to finance for a number of years, I decided that I wanted to take my money, my direct deposit, and I wanted to put it into my savings account. Because if I put it into my savings account, that would allow me to receive interest. Well, they said to me that they didn't have the capacity to do that because the document only said checking account number, checking account number. There was no line on there for savings account, only for checking account. Now, let me ask you a question that I do not want you to answer. This is rhetorical. I just finished saying that the bank model in the textbook in the garage says banks take deposits and pay interest, and then make loans and charge interest. But in the late 80s, I'm given a form that says directly deposit your money into your bank account, but it can only be done in a checking account. So again, rhetorically, do checking accounts pay interest? No, they don't. Now, somebody's thinking, oh, well, yes, they do, because I have a checking account that paid interest. Yeah, but if you had a checking account that paid interest, you had to put a large amount in it to receive the interest, which defeats the whole purpose. So what I'm explaining to you, not that banks are gangster, I would never say that. Not that banks are running game on us, I would never say that. I'm only explaining to you that it's set up in a way where the very model isn't even being implemented because we're putting our money in checking accounts. Now let's go a little bit deeper. Let's go a little bit deeper. Excuse me. I remember years ago, I was teaching about banks at a seminar, and some of the people in the room weren't really accepting some of the things I was saying because, for one thing, most of them work for banks. And so when we're emotionally tied, this is an important point, when we are emotionally tied to a particular organization, we end up defending it. Have you ever heard a mother of a criminal go to court and say, oh yeah, lock him up, take him? No, they say, he's my son. Let's give him leniency. Let's show him mercy. So when you're emotionally connected to something, you're biased in terms of the way in which you address it. So in that particular conversation, I was getting some bias. So I wanted to try to find a way to get them to see my point. So you know how hotel seminar rooms or hotel, you know what I'm talking about. The rooms in a hotel where you have activities, they have those pitchers of water. So I went and got a big pitcher of water, we'll pretend that's a pitcher of water, and I put it in the middle of the table. And I put the pitcher of water in the middle of the table and I said, let's pretend this is your checking account. Okay, walk with me on this one. Let's pretend that this pitcher of water is your checking account. And then I said, let's take this glass of water that's full of water and let's pretend this glass of water represents your checking account. Then I said, let's take this empty glass with no water in it, and let's pretend it represents our bills. I'm sorry, the glass with water in it is our salary. Our salary is full of water. That's all of the water we have to pour. The pitcher of water is the checking account, and the empty glass, bills. Glass of water, salary. Pitcher of water, checking account. Empty glass, bills. I hope you're following me. So I suggested to the group, we get paid 26 times in a year, okay? If we get paid 26 times in a year, that means 26 times we're taking the salary, we're putting it into the checking account, and then we're taking the checking account and we're pouring it into the bills. So literally, ladies and gentlemen, on that particular day, I did that. I took the salary. Remember, the salary is a glass of water. Took the salary, poured it into the checking account, pitcher of water. Took the checking account, poured it into the bills. Took the salary, poured it into the checking account. Took the checking account, poured it into the bills. When I finished doing that 26 times, watch me, there was water all over the table. There was water all over the table. So I asked the group, why is there water all over the table? So I got a couple of smart alecky answers. And then someone said this, the water on the table represents the spillage. And I said, exactly. It's economic spillage. Because every time you take your money and you put it into the checking account, and then you take your checking account and put it into the bills, it's possible that some of that money could spill out. And it's even deeper now because I want to really break this down for the young people. In the 80s, when I first had this conversation about electronic deposit, we used to have a book. What? How old is he? We would have a checking account book that had a log in it. And when we would spend money out of the checking account, we would write it down. And then we could track how much money we had in our checking account based on the difference between what was in there and what we logged. There's no log anymore. So here's a statistic for you. Watch this. If you write a check or you use your, let me keep it there. If you write a check or you spend money in your checking account and the money's not there, you get charged a fee. That fee is called a bounce check fee. Watch this. On an annual basis, the dollar amount that banks charge us in the United States of America for bounce check fees, $8 billion. $8 billion a year in bounce check fees. So let me get this straight. So first, he said in his garage, the definition said banks pay us interest on the deposits. But they're not paying us interest in the deposits because we're depositing our money into the checking account. And in addition to that, because there's no log and we're pouring money in and pouring money out, we're putting ourselves in a position where we're giving them $8 billion a year. I drive a Q56 Infiniti SUV, and it looks a lot like a Nissan Armada. So I was driving it the other day, and one of my 3 kids said, "Dad, remember we used to have an Armada? It kind of looks like the Infiniti." I said, "You're right." And I explained to them the whole Infiniti Nissan thing and the Lexus Toyota thing. And I said all that to say this. It reminded me of this fact. The Armada was pretty cool because I would get in the Armada, right? And I would put it in reverse. And when I put it in reverse, if anything was behind me, it would beep. Beep, 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 beep. So it's really cool. I put it in reverse, beep, 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 and it would beep. Now here's the thing about it. The beeping was so accurate that after a while, the indicator letting me know something was behind me, beep, 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 it was so valid, I stopped looking. I stopped looking because I don't have to look because the beep is there. Ooh, I just said something. Watch this. The banking industry has put a beeping mechanism in your bank account called an overdraft fee. Overdraft protection. Hey, sign up for overdraft protection. Anytime anything overdrafts, we'll take care of it for you. That's the beep. The overdraft protection, beep, beep, is the beep. But guess what, bankers? We stopped looking. We stopped looking because we've got the beep. So if I take overdraft fees and add it to bounce check fees, that $8 billion a year I just told you changes to $20 billion a year. So here's something I want you to think about. Sometime after that experience in grad school, they started offering something called online banking. And online banking allowed us to be able to do banking online. Now, I realize that this example is outdated, but I'm making a point. So we took the online banking, we were all excited about it. And then about a year later, they started charging us. They started charging us $8 a month for online banking. So all I'm saying is it was free, and then they started charging us. Now watch this. I remember there was a time when they gave us these little cards. And these cards were used where we could take the cards and we could go into a bank and we could withdraw money from it. They actually came up with a cute little acronym for it. It was called an automatic teller machine. So ATM. So it was really cool because we have the opportunity to be able to use this machine, this automatic teller machine, to take money out, and it was big. It was free. But then they started charging us. So my question to you is this. All these questions are rhetorical. What is the number one trick that a drug dealer uses to get a new customer? Give them a free sample. You give them a free sample, they get used to it, and then boom, you can begin to charge them. Now, I would not in any way compare a drug dealer to the banking industry. I would never do that. This is the Be Your Own Bank movement. I'm just explaining to you the reinforcement of the way in which infrastructure is set up, thank you for that word, where institutions benefit versus us benefiting. We're not mad. We just want to understand the best way to put ourselves in a position of strength. Now watch this one. I remember distinctly being in a meeting, a class in bank management in my PhD level courses. And the professor handed out an article. So we all read the article, and the article said this: banks are moving toward a cashless society. I raised my hand and said, "Excuse me, sir, why are banks moving toward a cashless society?" He didn't know, had no answer. But now we see it because every single person now has both an ATM card and a debit card. And if you have a debit card, then that increases the chance that when you take money out of your account, that it's going to be gone immediately. So here's something that I do to offset that. I don't use debit cards. I don't use debit cards. Why? Because it's so easy. I don't use debit cards because that ledger doesn't exist. This is what I do. This is just one example on how you can become your own bank. Because this is about how to take this new wealth and abundance that Ms. Anderson and Ms. Dyer are giving us and put ourselves in a position of being able to manage it like they do. So I believe in OPM, using other people's money. So what I'll do is use a charge card or a credit card, and all the expenses I have for the month, I'll put it on the charge card or the credit card. What's the difference? Charge card, you have to pay it per month. You know how credit cards work. You have the option of paying a minimum payment, which that's a whole nother class. But bottom line is this. So I use a charge or a credit card, and I put all those things on that I do for the month, and I pay for them. Now watch this. They send me a bill. They send me a statement, and the statement says, hey, you owe this amount of money in 30 days. So I did all of my spending for 30 days. And now I have another 30 days before I have to pay. Now, in order for this to work, you guys have to do a couple of things that you don't always do. And that is ask the appropriate questions. Because there are some of you on this call right now who have credit cards and you have no idea what your grace period is. Come on, I don't lie. So most of them are 30, but some of them are 15. You won't know unless you ask. You won't know unless you read that little, come on now, they're so smooth. They give you the terms and conditions, and there's that really small print where you got to have a magnifying glass just to look at it. Well, that's because they don't want you to read it. But I want to be in control of the data because I'm going to be your own banker. So watch this. My money is, and I forgot to say this, because that day when they would not allow me to deposit my money in my checking account, I simply wrote in savings, took it to the bank, and argued with them until they allowed me to deposit in my savings. Now, there's a whole nother issue about the fact that they only allow you to do 4 withdrawals per month in a savings account, but you can do unlimited withdrawals from a checking account. Game, recognized game. So if you think about this strategy that I just taught you, I have my money sitting in an account for 60 days, earning interest. But most people only have money in their account for 60 seconds. Because as soon as they swipe the card, whoop, money's gone. I'm buying the same things you're buying. It's just a way of creating an infrastructure where you are being your own bank. Now, please hear me. This is not about how to spend money. This is not about using credit cards. This is not about anything other than the fact that we have to train our minds to be able to ask the appropriate questions, understand the way the infrastructure is set up, and then think it through. If the oil says special and it's in the front, that's benefiting them. So let me just ask, is this the only oil you have? No, sir, we also have an aisle back there. Okay, I'm gonna check that out as well. So please understand that in being your own bank, it's less about this example because I can give you a different one every Tuesday and Thursday. I can say this about any institution. I can say this about any scenario. What I'm asking you to do is to begin to train your mind to think about the way things are set up from an infrastructure perspective institutionally, and then begin to write your economic story in a way which will benefit you. This has been a talk with the finance doctor. Questions, comments, testimonies. Questions, comments, testimonies.
Dr. Bythwood, I just want to thank you so much for the reminder that we have this opportunity to be, my favorite word, free. Thank you for the reminder. And not just the reminder, but the way, instruction as to how to be free. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Ms. Brownlee, and thank you for that, Ms. Harvey. How's everything going with you, ma'am? Questions, comments, testimonies from anyone on a talk with the finance doctor? So the question that's being asked in the chat, I really love unchatted questions, but I'm going to let you slide because it's after 10:30. Yes, you can pay your bills with a credit card, but the question is about which ones will say yes and which ones will. Most of them will. For example, my Spectrum bill, I always can do that. But some of them don't let you do it, some of them do. Most of them do. So, excuse me, it's just a matter of you asking if that's appropriate. But in 80% of the cases, you can absolutely do that. Okay, so if there are any other comments by any of my business partners or any other BYOB movements, movementeers, y'all like that? I made that up. Any other questions from the BYOB movementeers? Okay, well, we're going to go ahead and close this call, and I'm going to, okay, whoever's asking that question, unmute and ask the question, please. I didn't give my speech about walking in the power of the unmuted microphone, but this is a talk with the finance doctor. So please unmute and ask your question.
I'm sorry. So my question was, if you suggest us not having a checking account, how else can we pay our bills?
Okay, good question. My suggestion was not to not have a checking account. My suggestion was to recognize the implication of keeping your money in a checking account. So not having one and using it effectively isn't the same thing. I have to give this quick example. Please bear with me. I used to teach Vacation Bible School. And this is why I like questions like this. When I thought of this, I didn't hear your voice. I used to, excuse me, teach Vacation Bible School, and I had 3-year-olds. And we had this arts and crafts situation, and they told me to take the glue and put it on all the arts and crafts. So I went to each one of the crafts and I put glue on it. While I was doing it, I thought about the fact that there are people who sniff glue to get high. I'm not anti-glue. I'm pro using glue in the right way. I'm not anti-checking account. I'm pro using checking accounts in the right way. When we keep our money in checking accounts, we don't get paid. So it's not about not having it, it's about using it in the right way. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your question. Any other questions, comments, or testimonies? Anybody plan on sniffing glue after my bad mentoring there? I'm sorry. Questions, comments, testimonies. My kids always tell me I play too much. All right. So if there are no other questions or no other comments, we're going to go ahead and close this call by sealing it with prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this opportunity to come together as a group. Thank you for us allowing us to exchange information in a way which will allow us to manage our money in a better way, to manage our mindset in a higher vibration, and to continue to move toward the wealth and abundance that we know you have set out for us. Heavenly Father, we are thankful, we are appreciative, and we are grateful. Amen. Thank you, everybody, for a wonderful talk with the finance doctor, and we will see you all on Thursday. Okay, take care.